very much. For more perspective, I'm joined by Anthony Gangi, a former corrections officer himself and host of Tier Talk, a radio show about corrections workers. Also with us is former FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole. Anthony, I mean, in general, what type of individuals do prisoners tend to try to single out when they're choosing somebody to groom, I guess is the best term?
Well, first I want to say that corrections is an honorable profession. It's law enforcement professionals that do their work every day, and this isolated incident does not define who we are in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
In regards to, I guess, a target, it depends on the situation and the vulnerability of the person. Like, I don't know the story for this young lady, but let's say in case she has low self-esteem, these inmates will know exactly what to say to her to build up her self-esteem. And then when she gets home and she's looking for that comfort, who's she's thinking about? She's thinking about that inmate that was able to lift her up. And then when she starts thinking about that inmate at home, now she's going to work looking forward to seeing him. So the thing is, they build on the vulnerabilities, but that also depends on the situations that are created, which could be manifested through the inmate, or it could be created by us as staff. She could have been separated from staff. You know, maybe staff had some type of, animosity towards her. So at that point, what do the inmates do? They welcome her in. They take her into this group and they say, hey, this is who we are. We're accepting you. You're not like them. And next thing you know, she's pulled in. And now the game begins because she's identifying more with the population as opposed to with the job, her prescribed role. And the one thing I want to mention too is that, if I may, is that the inmate's objective is to make you forget that they're an inmate. You forget you're an inmate, then you forget your prescribed role. And then when that happens, then the game is on.
Mary Ellen, let me bring you in here because it's interesting. I mean, we heard the woman in that piece, the mom of a previous guard who had helped somebody, saying, these people have 24 hours a day to try to charm you, to look at your vulnerabilities. They're studying you. You think you're watching them, but they're, as a guard, you think you're watching them. They're the ones who are kind of watching you, probably even more closely. And we keep hearing from people that Richard Matt is, in a way, charismatic, that he's able to figure out the emotions of others. But how does somebody who, by all accounts, is something of a psychopath, who doesn't feel emotions in the same way that other people do, how is he so perceptive at identifying others' emotions?
Well, he's had a lifetime of really targeting people and zeroing in on their feelings. And while he himself does not have deep emotions, he understands that that's part of society. So he can be a very good actor. And he understands that to fit in, and to be a master manipulator or charismatic individual, he has to pretend emotions. Emotions are very strong in the way that they communicate with someone. So he can act. They're amazing when it comes to convincing you, I feel your pain, I love you, I would never hurt you. And they've got the body language and they've got the focus on what they're saying, and yet there's tears in their eyes. And somebody that is naive, not knowledgeable about psychopathy, is very needy, has low self-esteem, that's what they need to hear. They're not going to assess them as being a phony. And this happens not just in a prison, though. This happens every day out in a bar, in the workplace, that you have people that can come across in a way that you're not prepared for their ability to manipulate and charm you. And it's probably more pronounced here, but it does happen everywhere.
I would have to agree.
And Anthony, I assume they start with asking for small favors or just small rules to be violated. That is not, you don't ask for something big right away.
No, because it's progressive. I mean, if you're going to ask for something big, it kind of makes the person that you're targeting like, whoa, what's going on? So it starts small to the point where the person doesn't even know they're being manipulated. Like they'll start with a pen, but then the pen becomes a leverage for whatever, the next step up, a candy bar. And each thing levels up. I always give an example of, like, if I'm losing weight, my wife may not notice it because she's closest to me. She won't see it, but there's a change that's occurring. The person that's mostly involved in that change ain't going to see it until it finally occurs. And then sometimes in that case, she may not know how deeply involved she was. That's why it's very important for staff to get involved and see it occur. Because here's what gets me upset. And I'm sorry for people, if they get offended by this, but staff should be shocked when a civilian or another staff member gets caught up. The reason why, because if you're not shocked, then you saw things that you didn't act on to prevent. And if you didn't prevent it, what about that would have been a weapon? What about that would have killed somebody? You know, that's something that you have to get involved with immediately, and that's why training is paramount, because not only should you be trained on how to resist manipulation, but you should be trained on to how to see signs from others so you know to get involved.
Right. How to identify it. It's a good point.
Yes.
Anthony Gangi, I appreciate you being on. Mary Ellen O'Toole as well. Fascinating stuff. Just to add, the